Reinicke and Robin Houghton out in a new factory Toyota Land Cruiser.
Ons het 'n nuwe voertuig, totaal 'n nuwe voertuig gebou. Ons het so 'n bietjie meer krag op die enjin gekry, 'n klein bietjie meer. En so 'n klein bietjie verandering op die suspensie gemaak. Dit kom maar so met die jare, verander jy hier en jy verander daar en op die ou end dan wen jy so 'n bietjies. Maar ons sien baie uit na die seisoen. Dit was verlede jaar het ons 'n taai seisoen gehad. Dit was 'n groot kompetisie tot op die laaste oomblik en ek dink van die jaar gaan dit dieselfde wees of nog taaier. So ons sal van die begin af met mening moet inklim om die titel te verdedig.
Motor racing in any shape or form is all about winning. The Shell Honda racing team has put together a powerful squad for the 1997 season, with beating the opposition the only priority for the team.
This season we're definitely here to win. I mean, with our sponsors, the big involvement from Honda and Shell, they want nothing less than wins, basically. Manufacturers and overall victories, class victories as well. Last year we had our problems. We had a lot of injuries to the team. Obviously the guys with the new bikes, you know, the Hondas are very, very powerful bikes. I think this year is going to be very different. The guys have got used to the product and we can expect, we're here to win. We're not here to come second anymore.
A new season often sees old campaigners back in harness, with John Lambert a case in point at Tarkastad.
Well, you know what it's like. You've got to take a sabbatical now and again just to get back into the mood for off-road racing. It takes a lot of preparation on the car to prepare a car. I've spent a lot of time and effort preparing the car, and yesterday the car performed, so I hope to keep it together today.
A new season also brings fresh aims and expectations for sponsored teams and privateers who hope to emerge as serious challengers for championships.
Ek was laas al derde geëindig saam met Willie. Hierdie jaar moet ons maar net 'n bietjie harder probeer. 'n Bietjie ouens opvang. That's all.
The Queen Motorspace event opened with a time trial to determine start positions for Racing Section 1, with a route in and around Tarkastad virgin territory for most of the competitors. The time trial produced few surprises in the motorcycle, quad and car categories, with familiar names up front. With everyone hoping to get a good start to the season, the scene was set for an interesting event. First car away was the raceco of Stanley Illman and Franz Stangl, with special vehicles taking 9 of the top 10 positions in the time trial. Illman and Stangl were followed away by John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie in the Digidor car. It was a promising start to Lambert's return to off-road racing, with former champions Bux Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer the third car away in the lubrication equipment raceco. Carolyn and Scholthammer were followed by 1994 champions Herman and Karl Heinz Sulwart in another raceco, and reigning special vehicle champions Franz Czepek Sr. and Jr. The first of the production vehicles to come under starters' orders was the Toyota Land Cruiser of Api Reinicke and Robin Houghton, with teammates Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek the second of the production vehicles entries in 12th place after the time trial. Coetzee and Leek were out in the aging Castrol Toyota Hilux, affectionately known as Fred, while waiting for their new Hilux double cab to be completed. Long-distance off-road racing always produces a contrast in styles and tactical approaches. Some crews like to get on the gas and mount a charge from the word go, with the Sulwarts falling firmly into this category. Others, like the Czepeks, prefer to play a waiting game and gradually wear down the opposition. Both strategies have their pros and cons, with the Czepeks, the reigning special vehicle champions in the V Motors Raceco, coming under pressure from Derek Pinoy and Craig Jackson, who are among the off-road chargers. Pinoy and Jackson were pushing hard in the quick fit raceco, with former champion Greg Harvey running strongly in the early stages in the Queen Motorspace raceco. In front of the production vehicle category, reigning champions Api Reinicke and Robin Houghton in the Toyota Land Cruiser were in the thick of the battle, going on amongst the special vehicles. With 9 South African championships between them, Reinicke and Houghton are seasoned off-road campaigners and were comfortably ahead of the production vehicle class. Behind the pair, another seasoned combination, Nardus Alberts and Pieter Mathieu in the Rapsa raceco, were looking to move up a place or two, with Marius Borain, the first of the single-seaters in the beautifully turned out little Mighty Mag, intent on making up ground on the Czepeks, who were leading Class B in the special vehicle category. Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux have mountains of rally and off-road experience, but had plenty of ground to make up on Reineke and Houghton. Fred was going like a train in the early stages, with Coetzee and Leek holding off challenges from Richard Carolyn in the lubrication equipment single-seater, and Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne, who were giving the unusual-looking Motortech Jimco its South African debut. For others, matters were not going that smoothly, but there are always good Samaritans to be found in an off-road race. When Colin and Derek Frankenberg got bogged down in thick mud in the Forsdix Range Rover, the Birkin brothers in the Toyota Hilux Turbo Diesel came to the rescue to haul them onto firmer ground. For the Birkins and the Frankenbergs, the incident cost them time. A couple of cars, including the Love Potty and Labuskachny Gerber combinations, grabbed the opportunity to pick up a place or two. At the front of the quad field, it was no surprise to see Lichtenburg dairy farmer Vickers van Deventer out in front on the Jojo Tank's Yamaha Banshee. Van Deventer has dominated South African quad racing in recent years, but was being chased all the way by a determined Christo van der Merwe on the Johannesburg Yamaha Banshee. Skalk Burger on the Murdoch's Yamaha Banshee was in close contact with Van Deventer and van der Merwe, with a good battle brewing between the trio. At the front of the car field, it was the end of the road for race leaders Stanley Illman and Franz Stangl.
We were leading very nicely and the car was going exceptionally well. We had problems with the brakes yesterday already and we tried to repair them, but it didn't last long. So we had no brakes, so we just had to take it easy, and then we just pulled out after 100 kilometers.
Away 90 minutes after the cars, and there were no surprises at the front of the field. The incomparable Alfie Cox was busy asserting his superiority on the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM, with Alex Vowles on the Antelex Dairy KTM running second to the Italian and leading the 250 class. Vowles was being chased by Free Stater Gray McLaughlin on the first of the Shell Honda entries, with Springbok Errol Dalton fourth on the road and second in the 500 class on the big Shell Honda. Reigning 200 class champion Rian van Niekerk had picked up a place or two early on and was reigning fifth overall and first in class on the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM. After a disappointing time trial, motocross Springbok Gary Peterson was trying to make up for lost ground on the Brasco Kawasaki. The leading motorcycles had by this time caught the cars running in midfield, with Cliff Barker and Malcolm Hubert in the Land Rover now under attack from Alan Gillian on another of the Shell Hondas. The bike race was developing into a pattern with everyone chasing Alfie Cox, but riders couldn't complain about a lack of variety when it came to terrain. Former motocrosser Ryan Hunt was busy negotiating a tricky section littered with rocks on his Shell Honda, and ahead of him, former champion Richard Manning was building up a head of steam on the Yamaha on a quicker section of the course. Manning's return to off-road racing sees him running in the 250 class this season on his Shell Yamaha. There was also plenty of variety where the cars were concerned, and when it comes to river crossings, the best laid plans of many an off-roader have come unstuck. Race leaders John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie decided on the bold approach in the Digidor, but they lost their battle when the motor expired on the other side of the crossing. Lambert and Fourie were still immobile when Frans Čepek Sr. and Jr. arrived on the scene. A thoughtful farmer had provided the tractor to haul the unwary out of trouble, and Lambert and Fourie were his first customers. The Čepeks are not ones to take unnecessary risks, and while the Digidor was being towed out of the crossing, the V-Motors Raceco pair tiptoed through the obstacle. No problems for the Čepeks, and no problems either for Nardus Alberts and Pieter Mathieu in the Rapsa Raceco. Alberts and Mathieu took a slightly more aggressive approach, but the end result was the same as for the Čepeks. While the unfortunate Lambert and Fourie waited for the Digidor's electrics to dry out, the Čepeks and the Alberts-Mathieu combination moved into first and second on the road. An itsy-bitsy little stream wasn't going to present problems for a Toyota Land Cruiser, and production vehicle leaders R.P. Reineke and Robin Houghton sailed through without any problems. Reineke and Houghton were now fourth on the road and challenging for overall honours. Marius Borain had other problems on his mind, with a little Mighty Mag's left front suspension showing distinct signs of wear and tear. Bahrain was thinking only of the fuel halt and some hasty running repairs and was being rapidly hauled in by the Sulwald brothers. Next to fall foul of the water hazard was the Olivier van der Venter combination in the Queen Motorspace Raceco. The pair were third in Class B behind the Chepex and Bahrain, but also had to call on the services of the tractor to extricate them from a spot of bother. Behind Olivier and van der Venter, other competitors were lining up to take their turn at crossing the stream. While the tractor was doing its stuff for Olivier and van der Venter, the big single-seater lubrication equipment racecar driven by Richard Carolyn made light work of the crossing. And unlike its sister car, there were no problems for the Harvey-Stone combination in the second of the Queen Motorspace Racecos. A good scrap was developing in Class E between the Birkin brothers, who were closing in on Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk. Neither Toyota Hilux was troubled by the water, with the Toyotas running in tandem and only seconds separating them. The quad field, it was still Wickers van Deventer on the Jojo Tank's Yamaha Blaster who was setting the pace. The undisputed king of quad racing in South Africa, the diminutive Van Deventer wasn't being allowed to have matters all his own way. Christo van der Merwe on the Johannesburg Yamaha Banshee was still in hot pursuit and wasn't letting Van Deventer get away from him. Also going well were the Breckel brothers, Paul on the Philips Rotax and Mark on the Brasco Yamaha Banshee. The Breckels still had enough energy to wave at our cameraman. The fifth rider in the quad equation was Schalk Burger, who was hanging in there on the Murdoch's Yamaha Banshee. Burger had his hands full though, with Grant Watkins chasing after him in the Gecko, running at the back of the Class B field. It was tough going for the quad brigade. These motorized bucking Broncos are not the easiest machines in the world to ride and require a combination of superb fitness, strength and concentration. Competitors were looking forward to a few minutes respite at the refuel point where, as always, there was plenty of activity. For those lucky enough to avoid mechanical maladies, the refuel point is more often than not a whistle stop. For others, there is some hard work to be done. Right into this category fell Marius Bahrain, who was having to do running repairs on the Mighty Mag's front suspension. In the spirit of off-road racing, there were willing helpers from other teams. There were no major problems for the Birkin brothers in their turbo diesel Toyota Hilux, who were locked into battle with Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk. The Birkins set out to do battle once more, with the two crews never separated by more than a minute or two. There were one or two minor running repairs for Witham Lloyd and Van der Walt, who were having a good run. The pair were eyeing a possible top 10 slot in the Raceco, but there were problems for quad leader Wickers van Deventer, who arrived at the refuel with a punctured left tyre. There were also problems for Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Jimco.
Oh, we missed the turning and we fell into a small little dam and the car was lodged. Water was above our shoulders. And unfortunately we couldn't get it out. Eventually we had to get a tractor with a crane on the back to lift it out. And the car is, there's water everywhere, so I'm loath to carry on racing because I'll be damaging the engine and the gearbox.
Despite his problems, Wickers van Deventer was in cheerful mood.
Wickers, baie werk weer vandag.
Ja, nee, staaie. Nee, ek het van die tweede refuel met die papwiel gery. Ek sal kyk of kan ek vir Christo vang. Nee, is maar staai, is baie rof. Dit is vreeslik moeilik om voor te ry met die lang gras. Jy weet nie wat lê voor vir jou en wag nie. Ouens kyk net als wanneer jy die fout maak, dan kan hulle uitbyt. Maar ek sal hom nou vang. Ek hoop so.
Van Deventer was not the only quad rider suffering from puncture maladies. Paul Breckel brought the Philips Rotax into the refuel, also with a flat left rear tyre, and after a bright start to the race, was slipping down the field with his helpers, faced with a few minutes of frantic work. Also slipping down the field were former champions Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Schalthammer in the lubrication equipment Raceco in the special vehicle category.
bit of a
Kenny,
day.
you guys seem to have lost a lot of time.
We've had a few problems with the gearbox, man. The automatic transmission is losing fluid. But otherwise it's fun. It's rough.
There were no prizes for guessing who was leading the motorcycle category, with Alfie Cox well in command. While Cox set off to do battle once again, the Barker Hubert Land Rover needed attention. It was still raging, with Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk chasing the Birkin brothers in Class E. Motorcycle leader Alfie Cox found himself caught up in the battle of the Toyota Hilux Buckies and was forced to eat a little dust until he found a way around the Toyota. Mounted on the AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM, the Natalian was again stamping his authority on a national championship off-road race. Behind him, teammate Alex Vowles on the Antelix Dairy KTM was holding on to second, only to run into problems with punctures, which cost him 20 positions at the end of the day. At the front of the quad field, there was a turn-up for the books. With Wickers van Deventer running into his puncture problems, Christo van der Merwe had taken over the lead on the Johannesburg Yamaha Banshee. Van der Merwe was starting to build up a commanding lead, with a maiden national championship win now firmly in his grasp. Graham McLaughlin was having a good first race on the Shell Yamaha and was third on the road and second in the 250 class. McLaughlin was having to look over his shoulder with Gary Peterson on a charge, with Wickers van Deventer doing all he could to cut into the lead that Van der Merwe had built up since the refuel. Van Deventer was throwing caution to the winds on the Jojo Tank's Yamaha Banshee, but he wasn't making much of an impression on Van der Merwe, who had the bit between his teeth. Gary Peterson was another who had the bit between his teeth. After a disappointing time trial where he could only manage 13th place on the Brasco Kawasaki, the motocross Springbok was on a charge and had his sights set on catching McLaughlin and Vowles. Ever the showman, Peterson was cutting into McLaughlin's lead and pulling away from Errol Dalton on the Shell Honda. Dalton was fifth on the road and second to Cox in the 500 class. While Dalton was going along steadily enough, Alan Julian on another of the Shell Hondas had lost ground after starting the day in third place. With early 200 class leader Rian van Niekerk running into problems on the AGA Panasonic KTM, the steady Clayton Ensslin had moved into the lead on the FMF Racing Kawasaki and had a sizable lead over Wayne Farmer on the Shell Honda. Behind Ensslin there was a steady ride from Elmer Simons on another of Shell Honda entries, with Simons on the fringes of a possible top 5 placing. In an impressive performance, privateer Marco Cavina had moved into third place in the 500 class on a KTM and was looking at a possible top 10 finish ahead of some of the more fancied riders. Veteran Richard Manning, a multiple former off-road and national enduro champion, was also soldiering along on the Shell Yamaha and also looked to be assured of a top 10 place. Matters looked to be clear-cut for Alfie Cox and Christo van der Merwe in the motorcycle and quad categories, and the same pattern was emerging at the front of the car field. First on the road by a healthy margin and leading the special vehicle category were Frans Čepek Sr. and Jr. in the V-Motors race code. With Frans Sr. handing over the driving duties to Frans Jr. over the latter part of the race, the pair had opened up a sizable lead over John Lambert and Hendrik Fourie in the Digidor, who were trailing the Čepeks by around 20 minutes. In a terrific performance, reigning production vehicle champions R.P. Reyneke and Robin Houghton had worked their way to third on the road in the Toyota Land Cruiser. The production vehicle win looked to be in the bag, but behind them they had former special vehicle champion Greg Harvey and Brian Stone in the Queen Motorspace Raceco, who had moved into third place in the special vehicle category. The Harvey Stone car wasn't a threat to Reyneke and Houghton, where overall honours in the production vehicle class were concerned, but a late charge from Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux was putting the Land Cruiser under a little pressure. A fired-up Kutsia and Leek were rapidly eating into the Reyneke-Houghton lead. The steady as ever Richard Carolyn in the single-seater lubrication equipment Raceco was on his way to 6th overall and 3rd in Class A. There is nothing fancy or flamboyant to Carolyn's approach to off-road racing, but he gets results. Another veteran off-roader to come up with an impressive performance in another single-seater raceco was former champion Wilfred Weslau from Lesotho. After a long break from racing, Weslau was assured of a top 10 finish and 4th in class. In another family affair, Nick and Ryan Harper in the Pro-M Raceco were assured of a good finish in Class A in the special vehicle category. The pair had a steady run, but the terrific battle that had raged throughout the event in Class E in the production vehicle category eventually saw the Birkin brothers in their Toyota Hilux Turbo Diesel edge ahead of Niels Lemmer and Dries de Klerk. Witham Lloyd and Van der Walt also had a steady run, putting in a determined bid over the closing stages to get the Lloyd's Racing Raceco into the top 10 overall. After their early trials and tribulations when they were pulled out of the mud by the Birkin brothers, Colin and Derek Frankenberg recovered well in the TSW Racing Forsdix Range Rover. It was hard work in the big Range Rover, but the pair had managed to move into 3rd place behind Reineke Houghton and could see a leak in Class D in the production vehicle category. They had a sizable lead over Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert in their Land Rover Defender, with Barker and Joubert putting in a charge over the latter stages to try and catch the field. The pair also had to eradicate a 1-hour penalty imposed by race officials for missing the time trial the previous day due to technical problems. The Frankenbergs finished more than an hour and a half behind overall winners Franz Czepek Senior and Junior, but with only 19 classified finishes out of 34 starters, the Queen Motorspace 400 had provided a tough opening to this year's national championship. So, a flying start to the season for reigning national special vehicle champions Franz Czepek Senior and Junior, with overall victory in the Queen Motorspace 400.
Really a great way to start the season. We've achieved what we wanted to achieve. We won the championship last year and we won the first race of the season, which is very nice. And this year we've got a complete new runner, my son, who's been co-driving me for the last couple of years, faithfully and patiently. I gave him the second leg of the race today and he kept up the good work and we came in first.
What was the terrain like out there?
Terrain was very good, nice and rough, a nice variety. Fast roads, a lot of rough rocks and things. Nice new experience to be in the driving seat. It was good fun.
And it was that man Alfie Cox once again in the motorcycle category with class wins for Cox, Gary Peterson and Clayton Ensland.
I'm very happy with the first win. You know, the way to start the season off makes you feel good that if you've been training hard or you haven't been training hard, has it been worth it? And it's been very good.
A Toyota clean sweep in the production vehicle category with reigning champions Api Reineke and Robin Houghton edging out factory teammates Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leek.
Die route op zichzelf is heeltemal 'n nuwe byeenkoms hierdie. Baie lekker route. Dit is soortgelyk aan die dak van Afrika. Die dele wat rof is baie rof en dan die dele wat mooi paaie, dit is lekker vinnige paaie en ons het dit baie geniet.
A shock result in the quad category with Christophe van der Merwe handing Wickers van Deventer a rare defeat with Yamaha the dominant force.
Ek het geen probleme gehad behalwe my radiator wat weggewaai het waarvoor ek moes stop nie. En natuurlik 'n papwiel aan die voorkant.